thanks for coming. Does everyone grab a sheet off the chair? We have enough. I guessed like 20 today. I figured everyone was going to be at a soccer game like I'll be this afternoon. We're out working in the yard, or out having fun, or out playing golf, right? So thanks for coming. I'm going to show a little slideshow. We're going to go through kind of fast and furious, a whole bunch of different bulbs here. I kind of I can't break tradition this year, but I always bring in a couple pots from my own house and plant some bulbs. I do a lot of bulbs in pots myself, as well as a landscape, so I'll kind of show you a quick little planning on a couple of these. We do sell pots like this. About 8 people already asked before class if that was for sale. No, it's not. It's mine. So, but we do sell pots. These are called boiling glaze. So kind of art pieces. I love these pots in my own yard. I've got quite a few different colors. We have a few left out there. We'll have a whole bunch more coming in here over the winter for next year. So thanks for coming. If we kind of start, we'll just talk about some bulb basics. You can see on the pictures up there. No, that's not my yard. I wish I had that much space. But I think it's a great place to start because I run into this problem when I do them in the yard a lot. You know, buying a bag of 5 bulbs might get kind of lost somewhere. So if you're going to plant, go bold. Get a whole bunch of them. Put them in a swath. Put a couple together. I mean, it's your own yard. You can do what you want. But I see a lot of my neighbors buy a package of 12 and put one here and one here and one there and one there. And they just kind of don't make much of a statement. So bulbs are a great way for spring color. I mean, they're really easy to grow. You know, the motto's dig, drop, done. I mean, they're that easy. I'm kind of OCD, so I'm a little more particular on how they get spaced and depth and all the rest of it. But honestly, Steve Smith, the last owner here at Sunnyside, taught me some good lessons on bulbs. We planted about 1,000 of them on the road across the street years ago, and he's like, what are you wasting your time doing that for? As I'm crawling around and getting all the little points right and spaced out, and he just dug a big hole and took a bag and threw them in there, covered them up, and walked away. And I was like, all right, they always grow and bloom. So it's probably not the easy way, but certainly save a little time doing that, right? So if we kind of start with some basics, you know, bulbs are one of these things we have to stay a season ahead. So everybody comes down here. I've been doing this like 32 years. They come to me in March and April and May and say, where's all the tulips? Why can't I find daffodils? You got to buy those in the fall because we plant them in the fall and then we get to enjoy them the next year. So you're always a season ahead. In February, March, you'll be buying your dahlias and lilies and gladiolas and stuff that blooms in the summer. So we always want to stay about 6 months ahead of time. The big thing around here is drainage. You know, I don't know. We had the driest year I've ever been here my whole life. It was an incredibly nice summer. I think we're going to have a mild, wet winter is what we're planning on here. We have to have good drainage. If we have clay and we throw some bulbs right over the top of it, they're going to rot. So make sure we have good drainage, or in pots is always an easy way, which is I do a little extra bulbs that way too. So make sure we got drainage. Size matters, you know, and I'm not saying you got to buy every single thing gardening at Sunnyside. Well, yeah, I am, but I'm just kidding. You know, you go to other stores, we see Costco, we got Lowe's. I'm no different than any other human in the area. We're out buying something else at the grocery store, and I'm like, wow, they have bulbs here. Sometimes very cheap, but look really close because size is what's matter. You know, we order a specific premium size on everything so that you get bloom now. I see a lot of people buy a bulk bag of daffodils for 10 bucks and think they got the best deal on earth, and if you've got some patience, you probably did. You won't get a lot of flower that second year, very minimal the first season because they're just not big. The bigger the bulb, the longer they've been in the ground with the grower, the more impact I'm going to have instantly. So pay attention to the size. Everything's going to have a grade on it. And we tend to, again, get as big as we can on everything. So maybe just a touch more. Sometimes if you're getting into bulbs at the beginning, blends are a great way to start. You know, we've got big bags in there, mixing of tulip daffodils, 3 different colors in one. There's a lot of little kind of beautiful blends, they call them, in there. And if you're looking like, you know what, I want to give this a try, let me plant a big swath of it. You know, pick out your own color tone, and you can probably get a really easy little mixture to kind of kick off the season for you that way. Pay attention to heights, and check your depth. That little package is going to tell you everything you need to know on it. If I can read about it, I can look at the back. It's going to tell me how tall, when it blooms, how deep I should plant it, all that stuff is going to be right in the package, and things are going to be very specific for types of bulbs. So check your depths. You know, do I pull out a tape measure and get it to 5.25 inches? probably not, but I get close. So I do probably spend a little more time than most gardeners planting my bulbs. I like patterns, but certainly check your depth and look at your heights depending on where you want to put them in the garden. Space them properly for longevity. I mean, they're going to tell you, you know, plant these 3 inches apart, 4 inches apart, whatever it is, especially if I'm trying to naturalize my bulbs, and we'll talk a little bit about that with certain things. I want to plant them, I want to walk away, and I want them to get better and better each season and get more and fill in. That's what the spacing is going to do. In this container here, you're going to see me dump all those bulbs into one pot, and I'm going to be packed because I just want it for 1 year. Then I can take it apart next April, May, when it's done, put what I want to keep in the garden actually, throw the rest away, and then I plant my flowers back in there for the summer. So I can kind of do it that way too. You'll see me with the pots here as an example, using multiple varieties to extend the blooming season. So you see pictures of my pots that we did last year at the class here coming up, but I want to walk out from say 1st of February, early February, and I'm going to have something going all the way into May in just this pot right here, and the same thing with that pot. So I'll have something going for a number of months. Like I mentioned in the landscape, plant in masses, you know, buy 2 bags of one, or you know what, it's up to you ultimately, but I think you're going to be happier with your presentation if we put a really nice chunk or mass of something in versus just a couple of this and a couple of that. One big thing I'm going to probably mention 8 times during this class is let the bulb tell you when it's done for the year. Everybody, including me, walks out in May and they're like, I just want to cut it off, I just want to cut it off, it's done, it's done. Don't do it. You know, if I'm a bulb, all that green foliage, then the bloom's done. You can deadhead them, which is what I do, and get the old daffodil off or whatever it is. But I need that foliage because right then it is storing all the energy into the bulb that gives me the bloom for the next season. So that's the whole reason. If I cut that off, you're probably not going to get a lot of growth and as much bloom the next year because it hasn't had the full season to store. Typically when we stop raining and get dry, usually by June, sometimes maybe some later ones into, you know, maybe 1st of July, they're going to be yellow, brown, melted, shriveled, and you can just rake them off the ground, put them in the yard waste, and I'll see you again next year. So don't try to beat Mother Nature, let them die off on their own. Now a couple things, you know, bulb planters, I don't know, does anyone have a bulb planter in here? I'm always curious. You got a couple, nice, save some time. There's a few around that are good, plastic ones not so good, get a good metal one with the wood handle if you're going to get one. I use that roto auger a lot. I don't know if you guys have one of those, but especially in the yard, if you're like me, 30-year-old yard, established, I got roots everywhere, I can pop that auger into my cordless drill and literally walk out and just auger holes, drop my bulbs in, cover them up, throw some food in, and I'm done. I mean, it's really that easy. So sometimes the auger may save you a little bit of time. That's a pretty heavy-duty bit, and you can get a couple different sizes of those as well. You know, try with everything in my classes. I'm always trying to talk people into going green. I mean, use organic fertilizer, use organic amendments. If we have issues with bulbs, worried about rot, anything, we'll talk a little bit about that later. Use organic products. You shouldn't have to go get any kind of murder, death, kill to take care of your bulbs. That's a pretty easy one to maintain. So good fertilizer will give you a healthy plant if we ever need to, and honestly I don't know that I've ever had to spray a bulb for anything in my yard in 20 plus years, so you shouldn't have to do a lot anyway. I've dumped, you can see the bag up here, I'll use the rest of it in my pots, but I'm always using that Edna's EB Stone potting soil. That's the best one I think on the market. It's got a little peat in it. We'll actually have this in 2024 with the peatless option finally, with just cocoa coir, which will be kind of fun too. But this is an excellent potting soil. It's got everything I need in there. I've already put, you know, that much in my pot to get started here with before we'll plant here at the end of class. So use potting soil in pots. We don't put potting soil in our ground. We're going to get compost right there. And we've got compost on special here, started today for the entire month of October. Buy 3, get 1 free. So a little extra promo for fall. So great combos for everything in the garden. Mulching, mixing with your planting holes. When I put bulbs in the ground, I will typically auger or dig my area up if it's one big swath, and I will add compost into every single one of those little holes and mix that with my native dirt for my backfill with my fertilizer, and then off we go. Okay. Now, this is going to sound weird, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of bulb food around anymore. This one's kind of just gone away. I think sometimes, I'll speak for me in my own garage, I don't need a rainbow of 15 different bags of fertilizer because I have 15 kinds of plants. If we talk organics, anything is going to work great for anything else. Maybe with the exception of our vegetable food has got to be specific, and certainly acid-loving plants, blueberries, rhodiola, azalea, we want to get that specific food. But I could put all-purpose, Sure Start, rose and flower, bone meal. I could put anything in my bulb containers and they're going to be happy. They just need a little extra phosphorus, a little extra potassium. Bulb food typically was very low in nitrogen, and it was honestly like, why don't we just buy bone meal? Why are we carrying bulb food? I mean, it's the same thing almost. So we do not do it anymore. I think E.B. Stone honestly is just going to quit packaging it. I just don't think they see the need for it as a specific amendment. It wasn't a pretty yellow bag. If you had a bag in the garage, you can keep it for all eternity now. But there's some good options. You can see what I brought in is Ultra Bloom out of my garage. That's what I happen to have some extra around. Again, there's no nitrogen in that, but I could care less. I don't want green, I want flower. So that bulb I'm going to plant is already ready to go for next year. I want it to start sucking up that extra phosphorus, potassium when it breaks bud over winter and starts growing roots. Then I'm good for the next season, if that makes sense. So anything, rose and flower, you can see Sure Start there works for anything, period. There's my Ultra Bloom, or go back to bone meal. I mean, that was honestly, you know, going back 30, 40 years ago, even with my mom and my grandmother gardening, there was always a big sack of bone meal around. We used that for a lot of things in the yard as well, okay? So good food. If we kind of talk a fertilizing schedule, you're gonna see me in the pot put some in when I plant it. If I was going to keep the bulbs in this pot year after year after year, I'm going to go out there in March and put another dose of food on top and let that start to work in. Then I can keep that cycle going. In my landscape, it would be no different. If I planted bulbs, when I put them in the ground, add food. If I'm going to keep them there after next spring when they bloom, I'm going to do the same thing and walk out there coming out of winter, add that other dose of fertilizer, and then I've got that push, the storage I want, they go yellow, and then I'll see you again. At that point, it would be 2025 with even more flower that way. Okay, is that kind of making sense to everybody? This is always one of my favorite slides because I love my squirrels, but they are wanted in many neighborhoods. I used to have a shirt that said grand larceny, property destruction, theft, all kinds of stuff on there. But, you know, I wish I had a magic answer for you. Everyone kind of chuckles because I think we all like creatures, but maybe not so much when they rearrange our yard on a weekly basis. Mr. Squirrel is going to borrow some bulbs. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If we talk animal, you know, repellents, you know, and things, certainly Repelazole might teach him not to come and dig up the crocus I just planted. That's basically, you can get hot pepper wax, you can get all kinds of stuff. If you want to get crazy, go find a bottle of coyote urine or something fun like that. So there's options to try to repel them. I don't think anyone's interested in trapping them perhaps and getting rid of the squirrel, but well, maybe a couple people are, but try a good repellent first. And then keep in mind, again, that package is going to tell me everything I need to know. There's certain things animals won't touch, period. There's other things you're probably going to have to watch a little bit more. I have some people plant some of their bulbs like tulips in wire mesh bags so that Mr. Squirrel can't dig them out and move them around the yard for him, because he's done it for me many times. But certainly narcissus is going to be at the top of the list. If I don't want deer nibbling and I don't want squirrel messing with them, or really any creatures, rabbits, all the rest of it, daffodils is the way to go. Tulips, I tend to do mine in pots for that reason, because sweet, you can't really climb up there. You can take a piece, I don't care, but you're not going to get them out of the ground that way. So look on the thing, it's going to tell you deer, critter resistant, all that information right in the package as well, okay? The one thing I do worry about, because I do tulips in here and I checked my bags before I bought them yesterday, is just make sure we don't have any rot going. You can see those nice tulip bulbs with a little gray mildew on there. Tulip rot is something, if I have it in the ground, it's going to get on the whole patch and I won't have the tulips anymore. So sometimes folks maybe take a little copper fungicide, or if you're natural, that picture shows a red bottle of Serenade, but we have the same thing in a different brand now that's even better. Maybe we mix that in a little can. We soak our tulips for a couple minutes, let them set out to dry on a paper towel in the garage vents, then we put them in the ground. you know, or we kind of dip them, wet them down, plant them right away. That's fine either way. But I would have maybe that extra shield on there. If I had issues with that in the past, that might help you a little bit. So there's a couple of my pots. These are two we did last year here in class. Who was here last year? Anybody? 2 boring years in a row? See, everybody, no one was here. That's why you're here this year, right? So the containers we plant, usually everyone's like, I can't believe how many bulbs you put in that little pot, because I pack them pretty good. But you can see the progression. Those are 2 different pots sitting right at the edge of my driveway where these 2 come from every year, and I do some other ones in the yard as well. But again, I start with crocus, hyacinth, some fragrance. I got color, then we go into some of the early daffodils. Usually I'll throw an allium or 2 in the center to get me into May, and then I'll have all kinds of cool tulips that I like kind of for that tweener season. But I'll have flowers on these, the same thing next year, you know, pretty much starting by Valentine's Day for sure, and I'll have flowers going on those all the way into May, when it's time for me to throw these away, plant them in the yard what I want to keep, and then we go back to annuals. You know, this as of 6:30 p.m. last night was a 4-foot salvia for the hummingbirds. She was probably not happy this morning when she came to get her snagged. And then I do million bells around that. This was a mixed container with celosia, and I had a kufia in there, a little hummingbird mint plant, and they look great all summer. And sometimes it breaks my heart. I probably could have had it for a few more weeks and they would have been happy, but you know, for the class, I had to destroy them. So they went to the yard waste in the sky last night in my bin, and here we go for some bulbs today. So I'm gonna whip through this pretty fast because this is a lot of different examples, and you can kind of see some pictures on here. If we talk crocus, snow crocus, species crocus, we just finished with fall blooming crocus, like saffron crocus. If anyone's interested in that, you got to come in really early for those, like August. We're already out of those, but so there's still some crocus left. You know, that I want a carpet. You know, I'm talking about short, 2, 3, 4 inches, and I want a mass of those. I'm not ever, hopefully no one ever plants a crocus bulb. You want a bunch of them. Mix the colors, do one, whatever is your taste. But that's one that I would say that magic word naturalize for the first time. When I buy a lot of bulbs from my own landscape, I want to plant them and have them forever. You know, yes, the squirrel might move one here and there for me. Usually with crocus, that's the one that gets mine. But it stays kind of where it is, and every year they get better and better. I get more bloom, more multiplication, and I've got a great naturalizing type bulb. I do a lot of these under deciduous shrubs. You know, I don't want to look out as much in April and see a bunch of brown, yellow, dead, dying bulbs as everything's kind of looking fresh for spring. So I figured out over the years, my lace leaf maples, other large deciduous plants, I've got carpets of crocus underneath all of them throughout my yard because no leaves on it all winter. Sweet, I can see the crocus break bud, come up, bloom, then the tree leaves out, and by the time that happens, the crocus can just go dormant in peace underneath there, and I don't have to look at it all spring. So there's maybe a tip for me, what I do. But again, it's not that these are going to be in the summer looking like they're tired. Once they store their energy, they go yellow, they go brown, we snip them off, we'll see you again next season, just like everything. So yellows, lavenders, whites, pinks. There's a little bit of orange left in there, I think. That's my favorite crocus. I don't know how many bags I purchased in 10 years, but I bought 5 more again this year that I don't know where I'm going to put yet, but I'll find somewhere. Because it's just nice to look out in the dead of winter and see carpets of flowers amongst the gardens here and there. I think that's an easy, really one. Hyacinth is always going to give me fragrance. Both my pots will have some hyacinths. I have hyacinths in the ground right by my front door that you would never know are there except when they're blooming in February, March, and April. Incredible fragrance. They make great cut flowers. You can get pretty much any color on hyacinth these days. I don't know that there's a rich scarlet red. They're getting pretty close though, but again, a lot of pastels, whites, pinks, lavenders, blues, purples, a lot of those, easy way to go. I apologize, I'm going to bring this up, and that's one I marked to get for next year because we're out already because I talk this one up every year, but I love winter aconites. That might be my single favorite bulb. The first one to bloom in my yard every year. They love deep shade. Everyone's got shade in their yard, use it as a ground cover almost. These will bloom like right after Christmas. I mean, I'm walking out in January and I got carpets of yellow, all the Japanese maples, different areas in my own yard. That's an excellent one to naturalize. I don't ever have any issues. These, I've had my first batch in there 15 years, and I just keep buying more to add into other trees. So that's a really easy one to do, especially if you've got shade. That's a tough one with a lot of other bulbs. So look for winter aconites, they call those, or erianthus. You might be able to find them online still. This is one, when you buy a bag, you're probably going to look at me like, why are you selling me a bag of dead raisins for $10? Because they do not even look like bulbs. They look like little shriveled up pieces of orchid bark. But they always grow, and even the first year you put them in there like that big, you got a flower the next season. So I mean, they're really, really easy to do.
How tall do they get?
That's short again. I mean, I might be in deep shade like that tall with the foliage, but most of the stuff's going to be just a couple inches.
Okay.
Yeah. Fritillarias, if you're into growing something fun, I'm always honest. This is one I have struggled with myself. I do not think I have enough humusy, woodsy soil in different areas in my yard to do fritillarias. These have to have good drainage. And if you've got, again, that partial shade woodland garden, you know, well-drained soil with a lot of composty, humusy content, fritillaria will probably do great for you. That's one I'll probably try again this year, and we'll see what happens. So we could get some fun little fritillarias. A lot of species on those too. Some of the early ones, some snowdrops. I just added my first patch of snowdrops last year. I was like, it's about time I planted some snowdrops, so I finally put some in my yard. This would be another one really early, so I'm talking out there like mid-January to mid-February. Shade's great, naturalize, yes. Those are pretty critter resistant or critter proof as well. But that's another one. Plant a mass of them, please. I think I put 30 in a little patch by the kitchen window in the shade to see. I'll see what happens this year, because last year was just kind of a test. So, but it should be a fun one for early. If you really want some stuff that'll take over, I found that picture online, because there's Scilla for you. You know, that's one. If you plant a few of those, that's a gift that's going to keep on giving. So if you've got some room and you like bluebells, let the Scilla take over. That'll grow just about anywhere, anywhere you let it. Squirrels will move those for you. I find a bunch on my bank every year from one of my neighbors. Thank you, neighbor. But certainly Scilla, stuff like Pushkinia's got a little bit different stripe in it. Both of those would be naturalizing. And I would never use the word invasive, but you probably have Scilla, you're like, yeah, I got Scilla all over the place. So if you like it full, that would be a great choice. That's not probably for the OCD guy like me. Gloria of the Snow, some really early stuff that's maybe a little bit different, some spring ephemerals. We've got like Gloria of the Snow, you've got stuff like Spring Starflower, some really nice tight blue ones. You've got the Snowflakes, is a little bit different than Snowdrops. But those would all be little fun things, again, for that part sun, part shade, you know, a little clump of it here, a little clump of it there, just to add a little bit of interest to the garden, you know, coming out of that midwinter to late winter season. All that stuff's going to be blooming again in that February to early March time frame to give you a little early color. Then we've got some alliums. You know, my 8 and my 12-year-old like using the wiffle ball bat on mine, so we've had a couple discussions on that the last couple of springs. But there's some fun alliums. I got alliums all over in different areas of the garden. This would be the opposite, something for hot sun. They come up early with foliage, but this is something that's going to bloom maybe late April sometimes, but it's really more of a kind of a May-June thing. So that's one I want. Big, huge. I mean, you can get alliums on damn near the size of basketballs. I mean, there's some big alliums out there. We feed them properly. We get them in good drained soil. These are kind of in the onion family, so they'll spread a little bit, multiply. If I leave those little firework blooms to dry, they'll drop some more, and I got another patch. I've even had a lot of customers even spray paint. You know, walk out and get kind of fun, and that flower gets spent. They carefully spray paint that globe, and then you got a little garden art for the rest of the summer. It won't even turn brown that way. So, but we can do alliums, you know, pretty big. There's some smaller ones too, but a lot of, again, whites, pinks, lavenders, purples, blues, kind of more on those tones on different alliums. So you got Christophii. I added some of those Schubertii in my butterfly garden last year. Those were really fun going into midsummer. They look like big firework bursts. even when they were done with their petals. That was a fun one as well. One early iris. We usually talk iris more for summer. We would find a big selection of iris bulbs, bearded iris, Siberia, all that stuff would be kind of a February, March thing to plant for the summer bloom. But this one, reticulata, is a little tiny short iris. So I've got a couple little patches that I put in years ago, and again, one of the first things to bloom. That would be like snow on the ground, and here comes my little iris blooming right through it. So typically I like the mixes that are purples, yellows, and whites mainly, but you can also find that with a specific color if you like as well. Muscari, kind of like the Scilla as I smile. Anyone have Muscari all over their yard? Yeah. I'll raise my hand, and I've never planted one, and I still have it all over my yard. Muscari is another one. You know, again, if I got a yard, I like things naturalized, I want to fill it up, that might be a great choice for you because they multiply very easily. Mr. Squirrel will plant some more for you. It's an easy one to do. Maybe if you're on the OCD side like me and you like your clumps and certain things in certain areas, that's probably not one I'm gonna plant. I'll let the squirrel plant some more for me for free, right? So a bunch of tulips. Tulips are one. We'll talk about this in two respects with tulips. So there's a lot of great hybrid tulips. I've got some going in my pots that we'll plant today. I use them in my yard on occasion. When I buy hybrid tulips, I'm thinking of the florist shop in my own brain. I'm gonna go down and buy my wife a dozen tulips and spend way too much money at Stadium Flowers, and I'm like, I could plant that bag and have my own dozen to cut and bring in the house, and I'm gonna save $5. So that's the way I treat it. I don't ever count on having tulips year to year. Those are the one things in these pots that will go to the yard waste. To be honest with you, in my yard, I will not save those. I will save the daffs and the crocus and everything else, but not the tulips. I treat them as kind of an annual thing. I never have had as much luck year to year to year having a really consistent tulip crop. You know what I mean? Now you might, great. If you find a spot they like, they'll be there and you'll be okay. But it's not one for me. I'm treating it as an annual. I'm buying it because I want cut flower, spring bouquet, interesting, cool flower that I can enjoy, and then, oh well, I'm good with you. We'll see you again. I'll go down and spend another $15 next year and get 2 more bags. How's that? So lots of tulips. Species tulips are the other half of this, and I'm not talking when I say pitch because I'm a species tulip addict, and I'll show you some pictures in my yard here in a minute. But I do those forever. I have species tulips all over the place, and they don't look like that. They're going to look a little different, but they're fun to have in sun, rockeries, different areas. You'll see some examples of those. So early tulips, we've got doubles. You can see some fun colors. Look at that Celesta is really cool. That's my color tone. So fun ones, sometimes fragrant. Check your packages. A lot of times the tulips will give you a fragrance, or the daffodils as well. We've got single earlies, which is what a lot of I'm putting in. I'm either doing early or mid tulips for my own taste. You've got some different species tulips here real quick. So you can see that Purissima Blonde was new a couple years ago. It's got a white flower, not the showiest thing, but look at the foliage on that. That's really pretty. So even when that was coming up, got a nice contrast. I can tell you that's going to be out with some other colors as well. We'll see that species tulip come with some other color options. Here's a couple from my own yard. These are some species stuff. So this is the stuff I buy. I plant in the right area, well-drained soil, the right depth. I feed them once a year. I do walk around when I see them come up in February, March. I'd sprinkle my Ultra Bloom or Sure Start or whatever I'm going to use, and I put that around them, let Mother Nature rain it in for me, and then I know I've got the energy for 2025 at that point. But you can see some really fun flowers. I mean, these are going to be a lot of times short, not super tall. Here's a couple. We've got Chrysantha, Saxatilis. I've got all over my little rockery, just kind of tucked. It's 10 here, 12 here, 4 here, 8 there. They're just kind of amongst all the different shrubs and things in the rockery. Again, this is the first thing you see if you drove up to my house in mid-February, early March. If you came by in May, you wouldn't even know they were there. They're buried by shrubs and other stuff. They've gone dormant, and I'll see you again next year kind of thing. One of my favorites is Tarda, or I call it the fried egg tulip. It looks like a little group of fried eggs. We got the little yolk in the middle and the egg white on the outside. So these are both at my house. You can see a pretty good swath of that. I mean, just for reference, that's that tall. So I mean, it's just like a little patch of ground cover. I've got about 15 feet of them running down in one area kind of by the log there by my garage garden. And I just love them. I think that's a really cool little plant. It's where my boys kick their soccer balls. That doesn't even break them usually, which is a nice thing. Sun? Sun, full sun. All these species tulips we're going to want to have in more sun than shade. Well-drained soil, good hot sun, really easy to do that way. Triumph tulips, a little bit different. You can see kind of the bicolor effect on some of those, maybe a little larger flower, a little taller as well. That suncatcher is spectacular. There's my yard. No, I'm just kidding. That's what my growing ground. That's up in Skagit Valley. Darwin hybrids, again, one I use quite a bit in my pots when I'm picking tulips out. That's the same thing we would find again at a floral shop that'll last you a few weeks with the color. Got some fun ones of those. And then even like doubles, Angelique's probably one of the all-time faves around here. I'm not a huge pink guy, but that one is going to be big, that's going to be bold, and that's going to smell incredible. That's one of the faves usually for our customers here. I think we still have some of the double lates in there that'll give you some fragrance like Angelique. If you're looking for something funky, I think we might still have a few of these, but there's some pretty funky tulips out there. If you look at those fringe, look like lily flowering tulips. Look at the parrot ones; those are really fun. I don't think we were able to get Virida flora this year, but that's an interesting one I've had before as a cut too. Lime green, white, kind of light pink. It's a really cool shaped flower too. Little fun one. And then that's the last, that's a little patch of these I have in my butterfly garden at my place. That's a little species called Greggii. And you can find those around in orange, red. I don't know if I've seen many other colors lately, but those really low again. I mean, my little flower is only that far off the ground. A nice tight little clump, and I like them because of the foliage. Can you see the spotting and the red on there? Looks really cool when they're not in flower. So those are already coming up in my yard, usually about Valentine's Day, and I've got the little clump of foliage to look at, and then I get the flower on top. So that's another one maybe to look for. Lots of narcissus out there, daffodils. We could use those terms interchangeably. Look at your options, because this is one, if I took the corolla, you know, the center and the background, we'll just keep it easy for you. I could pick, you know, pink, orange, peach, white, yellow, all those colors, and I could play games with whatever I want. You can find one out there, all yellow, all orange, all this, 2 colors. You can do whatever you want, singles, doubles. There's all kinds of daffodils out there available. But look at your options. The heights is going to be a huge one with me. The bloom time, depending on when you want it to kind of fall into color in your own yard. Daffodils, again, deer resistant, rabbits, all the rest will be easy on. But I can also use those as a cut flower if I want as well. So you can kind of do what you like in your yard.
What about slugs?
Slugs, well, you could put a little bait around. I don't think they ever really bothered my bulbs much of any kind, but it cleaned the debris up and put a little slug bait out early. You make sure you don't have any on there. So if we talk about trumpets early, these would be tall. So I'm looking at big, tall, traditional daffodils. And what I'm going to probably see in the fields up there, 1.5 feet, you know, big flower. We're going to get stuff like Dutch Master if I like yellow. We're going to get Mount Hood if we like something white. Maybe we get Akita if we like that two-tone with an orange with gold. But again, lots of different colors of those. If we look at the Cyclamenius, or kind of the shorter daffodils, this is what I use a lot of in the ground because these naturalize very well. I've still got teditates I planted 25 years ago, growing strong and looking great every spring in 4 or 5 different areas of my yard. I actually just bought 4 more bags of them because I'm going to add them somewhere else next year. But I can go again, yellow, pure yellow like teditates, Jetfire, a little bit of orange on the Corona, and then we've got Jack Snipe white with the yellow. And again, this is daffodil, we're looking at this. You know, 6-8 inches tall is all, nice and short, early blooming. Sometimes we get a warm day, they even have a little light fragrance as well, okay? We go large cup, you want to go bold. That's usually what I kind of have for my pots. You know, I want to go big flower with some bold contrast. So you can see some different options with those. Now the Avalon's really cool, a little different. But we've got stuff like split Corona if you want to go fancy. You know, a lot of times the folks I've talked to that are growing a little bit of these. A lot of times it is for a cut to bring in for early bouquets and things, but certainly some really different flowers on those. Split corona or the doubles. You know, again, really fun as a cut little flower.
Trevor,
Yeah.
did you say squirrels or critters are less apt to be
Daffodils and narcissus, they're not going to mess
They're
with.
not going to mess with those. I just
That's
wanna
probably
make
the
sure.
most resistant of all the bulbs. If we get into kind of some fun, small cupped, a lot of these are again going to have fragrance. The pheasant's eye, merlin, a lot of those got great smell, maybe a little taller structure to them. Or if we want shorter, we would go with some of the jonquil narcissus, and those are going to be probably towards the top of the list for fragrance. Again, great for naturalizing and not quite as tall. Usually when you buy these, you're going to get a blended bag, yellows and whites and different combinations together. You can plant a patch of them, but I would have something typically right at a foot tall, maybe even a little less than that, that's going to bloom really well, naturalize, and again, I can cut them if I want, but I will get some excellent smell. That'd be a good one by the front door for kind of early spring. You'll see a couple more right there, okay? So that's a lot of bulbs in a couple minutes. I'm gonna move my laptop so I don't get dirt in here. And then we're gonna plant some bulbs here. So anybody got any questions so far? You got a couple?
You mentioned the thing about, is it okay to put chicken wire over the bed and bury it?
Yeah, you could. I mean, it is going to keep the critters from digging them up, you know, if that's been an issue, and the repellents haven't worked, I certainly don't have a problem with that at all. You can see, we'll hide that underneath there, right? So like I said, I brought in a couple pots. We're going to keep this pretty easy. Better move the cell phone too, right? Yeah. So I took out annuals, and this is, you know, I should say, what gardener doesn't have a bunch of empty pots behind their house, right? How many pots we got behind the house? Who got the record here? I probably have the record, I shouldn't say that. But I have pots all over my landscape, and I like, a lot of times, some of it's permanent. You know, I've got a lot of Japanese maples, other stuff in containers. Sometimes even on those, I put crocus and winter aconites and stuff in, to kind of fun to have underneath the maples. But a lot of these would be, like I said, annual containers. This was all summer annual since last May that I got to enjoy the whole summer. Yes, I probably would have left it alone for a few more weeks because it was still looking really good. And the hummingbirds, frankly, probably pissed this morning because these were two of his favorite little planters in the front driveway. But next year he'll have some early nectar going with the bulbs as well. So all I've done is take Edna's, and I put about this much Edna soil in that container, kind of as a base, okay? I've mashed it down a little bit. It's got a nice firm base. I don't need to settle, but I'm about, 6 inches from the top of the lip. You know, I'm not going to fill soil to here and have a heap. I'm going to be down just an inch or so from the lip when I finish this. So I've got about the right depth to kind of start this.
What's
Now,
your drainage like in the pot?
just one hole. No gravel. You know, if you want to put a little mesh over the hole, I never do. No gravel anymore. I used to do that myself. No gravel in pots. That actually is worse for drainage than it is. And we're growing cactus, have at it, sand and gravel. But if we're doing plants, just a potting soil, regular drainage hole is plenty. So again, everybody's got different tastes. And my wife would tell you the same thing. I'm usually stuck in a rut, so I like the same colors every year. But I'm trying a few different things. So in this pot here, it's not quite as big as this one. It's almost the same opening, but this is giving me a little more depth. This is what I've chosen. I want a little bit of snow crocus. These are going to be planted short. So I'm going to use these around the rim so I can see that really early. I'll probably come home mid-January and see the green coming up and start enjoying the flowers.
But you don't put those in the pot until the end because they don't.
Exactly, that'll be later because they're going to be a little closer to the thing. Hyacinths I have to plant a little deeper, okay? And hyacinths is one much bigger bulb. I'm going to have a big fragrant purple flower, not super tall again, but I'm going to use those down a little more, but that's going to come up just about with the crocus. So these are my two early things, okay?
So
I'm gonna,
you go by the height that states on the back of it.
Exactly, heights that states on there and the bloom time as well. So this would be early spring. This would be early to mid. I picked out some of the little early jonquil type daffodils, and I'll use these in my yard again afterwards. And we'll put those in, so I'll have those three, first, second, third, overlapping in flower. That gets me probably well into March. And by then, I'm gonna have my 5 big large cup daffodils with my orange tulips in the center. They're gonna keep this going through into mid-late April. And then, like I said, at that point, get the wheelbarrow out, dump this all out real carefully. I will save, this will go in the garden somewhere. All this will go in the garden somewhere. Sorry, Mr. Tulip, but you'll get composted or recycled. But I'll have that in, I can choose to use them or not. If I don't,
This in one pot.
yeah, I haven't spent a fortune on bulbs, and I got to enjoy a beautiful display in my pot for 3 months. And again, I might end up cutting some of these and bringing them in the house one week, but very, very easy to do, okay? So just for depth, again, if I check my package, I'll read it for you here to make sure. So this is an early to mid, super hardy. These are usually hyacinths about 6 inches down. That's gonna grow a foot tall, okay? Crocus, like 3 inches down. Those are only gonna get about 4 inches tall. The tulips and the daffodils are all gonna wanna be in that 3-4 inches down the soil, okay? So I'm gonna throw just a little bit more potting soil in here, hoping not making a mess. Just a touch more. We kind of got that packed. And then for me, when I feed, you could wear gloves, but I hate gloves. Wear gloves when you do fertilizer. You know, am I going to get my measuring cup out? No. I go, well, that's about a 1 handful job. So I'll sprinkle some Ultra Bloom in here. Again, this could be Sure Start, Rose and Flower. I don't really care. You know, good organic fertilizer is going to keep them happy. I'm going to mix that up a little bit down at the base,
So how
because
much, what
because
level
now
of-
I've got what I want to grow down over the when these root out, and that's going to be right where those bulbs need a little fertilizer. Okay.
So how much depth do you have right there now?
So my soil level is about right there.
Oh.
Okay. So I'm about halfway up. So the first thing, because I know these are the deepest. Now I already know because I do these every year. Anybody get rashes from hyacinth? Yeah, wear gloves in case you don't know, because sometimes hyacinth is the one bulb that might give you a little rash. So I'm gonna kind of go. Should I get the measuring tape out?
Yeah.
As I usually do sometimes. I hate to admit it. So I'm gonna I just put 5. Let's see if I can show you this without tipping it over. So I'm just, the tips are always up. Can you everyone tell on any of these bulbs? I'm growing there, I got roots there. So hopefully we don't plant them upside down. Although that is, again, what Steve taught me, because half of them were upside down, and guess what? They still grow. So, but I always turn mine right side up. How's that? So I just put 5 kind of halfway in there in just a little pattern of 5. You know, that's kind of a ring in there that's going to get me the first. I'm going to dump a little bit more dirt on there, because that's about as deep as I need for the hyacinth, and then we can do the daffodils and tulips. So we just a couple more inches of soil. Now I can pull in my spring showstoppers. Yeah, see, these are really nice tulips this year. I mean, a lot of times at stores I see tulips about half that big. So I mean, these are really going to bloom. So again, I can do whatever I want. For me, I'm going to kind of set up a central circle. And again, I'm not as paying attention as much to spacing. You know, that bag's going to tell me plant them 4 inches apart. Well, how's an 1.5 inches sound to you? Because I want them nice and full here for my bloom display in my container. There's one more hiding there. So I've got tulips in the center, and then I'm going to sprinkle 5 of these big tall daffodils right amongst the outside of that. That's the same thing with daffodils. If you look at the bulb, I can see, you know, again, I can see where I need to plant that. You know, again, is it the end of the world? Just plant it right side up. How's that? Make it easy. So I'm going to just kind of make a little pattern here and go outside the tulip ring with 5 of those narcissus, just to give me a little nice. I thought the combination, you know, those 2 flowers together was going to look really nice as they're blooming together. Okay, now we're going more soil. Not going to smash it down, but I'm just packing it a little bit so it's nice and firm. I don't want it to settle too bad. And now I'm just about 2-3 inches from the top, which is where I want to be for all of my shallow things. Okay, so I'm going to put down 10 of these little miniature daffodils. These again will bloom really early, so I'm going to make kind of a ring of these about 3 inches from the edge of the pot. Oh, look at that. That looks OCD of OCD. Okay, and then the crocus, these are real small, so be careful. I've lost some crocus when I've been out trying to plant them in the yard a few times. Let's see if we can not lose any of this today. Oh, there you go. Yeah, crocus is really easy. Again, in the ground, I would never waste my crocus because these are the easiest things to throw a patch of these out. And like I said, just about anywhere in the yard, and they're going to naturalize so easily. So I've got like one big giant handful. I think there was about 15 or 18 in that pot. And I'm literally going to go right inside the edge and just sprinkle my crocus in the circle. Got the measuring tape? Who's got the tape?
Is that like 12?
I think these are like
12 inches across? Or
this pot's about 15. Yeah. Let's see, I'm not quite. I can use a couple more over there. Oh, that looks pretty good. Okay. The only thing I didn't do for the first time is typically in the center of mine, I'll put 2 big giant alliums and all the way at the bottom. And then when all this is kind of getting done, I've got the giant alliums to come up last. But speaking of Mr. Hummingbird, I'm going to get his hummingbird plants back in a little earlier next year. So I skipped the allium so I can really do this right late April, early May, and not wait till late May, early June kind of thing. So I've got it all in there. The last thing I'm going to do is top this off. Maybe just a little bit more. So I'm just about, you can see my finger, I'm just a couple inches below the level there, which is about perfect, because when I get home, I didn't bring it down here, but when I get home, I'll do the first part, is I will always take one more, maybe not quite as big of a handful, and sprinkle this on the surface, okay? And when I get home, I like the look of compost on my pots, just for me, so I'm gonna put pure compost, planting compost from Ruby Stone. I always got about 8 bales behind the house. I will mulch this for the winter. So you'll see a nice 1 inch or 2 deep compost is just a little mulch for the winter that'll keep it nice and happy. I'll take this home tonight and it'll literally go right on the rock that it was on when I took it from last night. And it'll sit there and get rained on and sit there all winter and freeze solid and do whatever it's gonna do, and it won't matter because next year I got my bulk container ready to go.
And they won't rot.
These will not rot, exactly.
And you hold them out, they can get soaking wet all winter.
Soaking wet all winter. That's going, water's going right through there. Yeah, really easy. I mean, you can see. I'm gonna try to dump it out here.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm packed in. I'm ready to go. You know, I'm not gonna. I'll tell you, some years in this class, 3 years ago, I'll tell you right now, I was like, all right, that was too many, because when it broke bud in spring, I had like a mound of soil that almost like spilled out the edge. It was like, all right, one less bag next year. Because you could pack them in. I mean, we really could put a lot. I could put probably another bag in there, and it's not going to hurt the bulbs at all. But it was almost like too crowded, you know. So I'll see a little bit of definition this way. But again, it's a really easy way to have some color early in the season. I'm using my pot. If I didn't do this in the winter, what would I have? A pot behind the house or an empty pot sitting by where my truck parked my truck? We'll just sit there all winter until next May when it warms up and it's like, oh, time to put some flowers back in for the season. Other containers, I'll take home today. I'll probably take home 2 dozen orange and yellow pansies. I love pansies. You know, and some other stuff that I'll get to enjoy in the window boxes. And maybe another container will still be there in the winter with some color. But some of these ones out in the landscape in particular, I love doing the bulbs in them. Makes it really, really easy. Makes my wife happy too.
So Trevor, you know, you've really emphasized the need to plant in mass, which I realize does make more sense than soldiers.
Yeah.
So why would you need one of those individual bulb, you know, the thing that you showed?
Well, if say that I had a brand new bed you know, or the hardest part to me is you've got a garden you've had for years and you're like, God, I got this empty little border here. I'd like to add some spring color to it. It's roots, it's tree roots, it's all the rest. And, you know, you're going to have a tough time digging in there. We're normally digging the whole thing out and dumping a bag in. So it's more like, here's a hole, here's a hole, here's a hole. And I can just slide them right in there. Yeah, I mean, it goes pretty fast if you've got a drill with that auger. I use it all the time for crocus, mainly for me, because I mean I could take a huge area and just turn it to Swiss cheese with the drill, and then walk along and drop crocus in every one of them, sprinkle some food out over the whole thing, a little compost, mix that all up, pack it back in, and walk away again. I'm good to go. One thing I'll tell you for me was really hard to remember sometimes as I get older. Where did I put those last year? It happens every year now. So sometimes for me, the compost is a huge trick because, you know, my yard's always pretty tidy. I mulch with compost all the time, but I think you would all agree, if I take a big heaping handful of compost, throw it on the ground and rough it out like a little patch, I'm gonna see that for a while. It's gonna look different than my soil. So that's my trick in my yard now. When I put bulbs in the ground, they get a really good deep mulch of compost, which is great anyway, but I can walk out next year and go, ooh, don't step on that. I put bulbs there and there's a patch there, and I can kind of find them a little easier, because otherwise it's like, I've done a couple times years ago, I'm gonna put some bulbs in there, and started digging them. Well, wait a minute, I already got bulbs in there. I'm taking those out of the ground, so you can kind of find them. So we can, I don't know, let me see what time is it. We could do the other pot if you want, or
Yeah, do the other top.
we got 10 minutes still. So again, this is just, you know, they're about the same size. You know, this again, the boiling glazes, I love, like art pieces. There's like 3 other ones kind of in this grouping out in front where I park up above my upper yard. The other ones have cactus in them, believe it or not. I grow like some prickly pear and some hardy agaves and some kind of fun succulent stuff. But these 2 are always for the hummingbirds, the 2 big ones. So I'm like, yep, I turned them into bulb planters a number of years ago, and so we plant this one as well. So this is just a little deeper. The only difference is I've started with more soil. So I've already filled a little bit more Ednas in there to get me a nice base layer. Again, I'm not gonna smash it down. Just pack it lightly. This one we could probably use the rest of this bag.
You put your alliums in there if you were going to grow alliums.
Yeah, if I was gonna do alliums, that would have been the first thing that goes in the bottom there. So now we're about, well, it might be a little bit too much. We're like 4 inches from the top, but I'll stick these first batch in down lower that way. Now it's the same thing for me. I wanted, you know, these are kind of, you know, 15, 20 feet apart, you know, in the yard. They look like 2 different areas, but they're kind of together and they're not next to each other. But I want to kind of carry the color. You know, one looks like this. I don't need a totally different color. Again, it's just my taste. So I'll pick out, you know, at least one of the same elements. I got the same jonquil daffodil, so it'll match that. I did a different crocus. I wanted a little different color in there, but again, I've got early bloom. I decided to go with a little different colored daffodil. They'll be blooming at the same time, but I like that combination, you know, for 2 colors together. And then again, the same little early hyacinth for a little fragrance. A little color in there as well, okay? So first thing we're gonna do again, Mr. Hyacinth. He's got to go down there a little farther than some of the other stuff. Well, these are really nice hyacinths this year.
Yeah, that's right.
So we've got 5 of those in. Okay. Now we're gonna put a little, I didn't bring in our bag of soil in here, so when I get home, I'll fill the rest of this up with soil, but I'm gonna set the bulbs in here because maybe you can come up and kind of see the pattern as well after class. So the next 2 things again, I'm gonna do my tulips. We're gonna go kind of purplish tulips this time. Get the right side up, right? Yeah, these are safe.
How many bulbs can you put in that bulb?
So this one would be, so what did I get? 10 tulips, 5 hyacinth, 8 daffodils, there's 23, and 8 early bulbs. So there's about 30 like larger flowers, and I got 2 dozen crocus because I wanted a little bit more color on the outside of this one. It's a little bigger pot and it sits in a little different area. So quite a bit. In the past years I Like I said, I probably put 2 more bags in there, and that was about too many. So we're gonna put just a couple daffodils in here to give me a little extra color. All right. And then when I get home, because these would be the short ones again, right? So when I get home tonight, I'm gonna do the same thing. Take another bag of soil out of my stash, fill this up another couple inches, and I'll have that rim of crocus all the way around the outside, and then I'll sprinkle a little bit of yellow daffodils just inside of it, because I almost have crocus blooms with the yellow daffodils, and then the next month I've got my tall pieces with purple tulips and that white with orange daffodil going in the center. So I'll have a nice little progression of color, you know, again, kind of for my taste. So we did some food, and then again, when I get home, we'll top dress with the fertilizer and then do the compost. I'll probably water. It's nice and dry finally for a couple days after last week, but we'll water this once. I'll put it where it belongs, and I will probably not, I can tell you, I will not touch it again until next May. You know, when I go out there, throw some food on it if I'm going to keep it, or I'm not going to water it, I'm not going to do anything for it. If it's out getting rain, it's going to sit where it is the entire winter, and I'm not going to worry about it for 2 seconds. Most of the bulbs you'll see on there, if anyone knows climate zones, well, how cold is zone 2? We could move up to like the Arctic Circle and have any of this stuff. So it's not, they're very, very hardy. We're not talking about stuff, you know, some of the summer things are the opposite. When we do this class and we talk about what to plant for the summer, the dahlias, the lilies, the callas, the cannas, all that really cool stuff we like in the summer that grows from bulbs, that's the opposite. We got to be careful with a lot of that over here in the winter that we might have to dig and store and do some extra work to, but not the spring stuff. We can walk away. That's all going to be very, very, very hardy. There's very few daffodils in there. You might see a couple of collector ones that might be like zone 6 or zone 7, which we're still, the book will tell you we're zone 8. Stick with zone 7, you'll be safer that way. But that's still not going to worry about any kind of winter death. Yeah. It's not the cold up here, it's going to be the wet. If we have too much wet and we have rot, we're going to have problems. So if you dig your hole and I hit hard pan clay, you got to fix that, do something with it, break it, compost it, something, or find a different location, because the water table comes up, heavy rains, I get puddles of water, you're going to rot the bulb. So we just got to make sure we've got good drainage. Okay? All right. I get to haul this stuff home tonight, right? See, I even brought gloves and a trowel, and I didn't have to use either of them. So there you go. So we got any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
A little off topic, but I planted dahlias this year. When do I put them back up?
Have you had dahlias in the ground before?
I did, but I pulled them back up.
You always pull them? Okay.
I've only had them just
Okay. You could probably wait a little longer. I know my dahlias, this is usually it's August, September. They're looking perfect still right now. Mildew's coming here pretty quick with the heavy dew nights, but I typically aren't cutting mine off like maybe mid-October or towards early November. You watch the weather. I never knew what it's going to do here, but if you see a really hard frost coming, it'll be time to lift the clumps and get them out. Now, I'll say this, and I don't know if there are really cool dahlias you have to keep, you want to see what happens, you know, that's up to you, but I don't dig mine anymore because I've found the spots that I don't have to worry about it. So there's a couple, like for my grandma, that get dug every year and go get stored in the garage because I'm never going to take a chance of losing it because I'll never see it again. But other stuff, I'll try a new one. It's like, see what happens. And it's again, well, and again, it's not the cold with dahlia at all. It's the wet. And so if we have beds built up, raised beds, good drainage, and the water's going through, you're going to have them come back. If it's heavier clay, too much wet in the winter, then they're just going to rot. It's not a temperature thing usually.
After spring and the bulbs are done and the flowers are gone,
Yep.
what do you do?
Well, we were right at the beginning, I think, before you came. So if we've got any kind of bulbs that I'm showing up here, and honestly anything in the bulb world, no matter what season it is, I have to let it go dormant on its own. If I walk out and clip green leaves off, is it going to kill it? Probably not. Maybe it won't hurt me, maybe it will. But if when I'm done blooming, the green is there because it's absorbing all the energy into the bulb for the next season. So don't cut off green Once they go yellow or brown, zip them off, throw them away, you're done. We'll see you again next year. But typically up here, you know, probably a later May to early June. Typically, I find in my yard when we get drier and it stops raining, it happens pretty quick. So let them go dormant normally, and then you always have it back the next season. Okay.
The bulbs that are 30% off, how long does that last?
The sale for the class, so like I mentioned, compost, I'll buy 3 get 1 free all month. We still got half price pots going. I've got a little chunk actually over there, 75. If you were down here for Customer Appreciation Week, thank you for coming for the sale last week. But those are still 75 on the chunk. Pots are 50, and then you got 30 off the bulbs. That'll go through Friday, so you can do this weekend. I'll tell you, with the sun out, you just do it today and do it while it's nice and sunny out today. I think the rain's coming back again by midweek, so grab. I'll tell you, I'll apologize because we typically have more. The sale for us, we were celebrating 75 years this year. We did a lot extra raffle stuff. If we were here a week ago, we had like $20,000 worth of stuff in here that we gave to our customers, raffles every day and grand prizes and everything else. It was a great success. But the sale was a madhouse, and we are pretty cleaned out of bulbs. There's still some really good stuff in there to look at. But next year we're going to do this a little different, because I always like doing this class, and it's always early October, last weekend of September. Well, let's move it before the sale, because then you get all the bulbs you want. Well, we don't even have bulbs sometimes. We're at the whims of the shippers and the growers, so sometimes we don't even have them till mid-late September. This year they came in early. We got cleaned out, I'm sorry, but next year we're going to do 2 orders and get a separate batch for the class. How's that sound? So that we have some fresh stuff in. Because some of the stuff I like recommending or that I use are the things that are already gone, like the winter aconites and some other stuff that typically I think a lot of people would enjoy taking home. So next year will be a little bit different. Yeah.
With the mulch on top of
Yeah.
the pot, which I've never done that.
Uh-huh.
Is that just aid in the fertilization? Or is it doing?
Well, it's, you know, any kind of mulch is always going to help. It doesn't, you don't have to do it, to be brutally honest with you. And again, it's probably my half OCD coming out. I just don't like looking at potting soil. So if I'm looking at a dirt all winter, I would rather see a beautifully mulched pot,
Okay.
and then I can see the compost breaking when it'll break bud in the spring, and then off we go. But I don't have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I do a lot of containers, and I've pretty much given up on the heavy ones. Can you say something about plastic or fiber pots?
Well, absolutely. I mean, again, this is frost proof that I don't have to worry about taking in and out. I can put whatever I want in there and always have it, but they are a little heavy, especially when they're full. I could use the same thing. We still have some nice fiberglass up there, part of the half price. I could do it in plastic, I could do it in fiberglass, I could do it in wood, I can plant a whiskey barrel. Don't do terracotta, because those will shatter in the winter. Those don't frost proof. But I could do this in any pot, you know, just because I have a fancy boiling glaze one that I bought years ago. You could have anything you like. I mean, you can plant bulbs in just about anything. It doesn't have to be a frost-proof place. Yeah, I mean, some folks I've talked to plant plastic pots, and they're like, well, I don't really want the plastic sitting out, and they'll literally like dig the planter into the ground as part of their bulb display, and then they just pull the whole pot up in the spring and off it goes away, and then bring it back again another time.
Or you can fit them into something heavy.
Exactly. Yeah. Or sometimes with these, yeah, I've done that too. One of my neighbor ladies does that. She's got really nice pots, plastic pot that slips inside of there. You can't even tell the difference, but she's able to manage it a little better that way too. You know, again, I don't need, you know, if I had pots that were that deep, that's plenty for bulbs. You know, I don't necessarily need to have it deep. I definitely don't need any higher that way. You know, the hard one for me, I always do these two. I don't haul it down because it is huge, but I've got a black one about that big. It's a big, it looks way too good to rip apart, I'm sorry right now. But it's another hummingbirdie pot in my shade garden, coleus and all kinds of fun stuff in it. I'll wait another month. I'm buying the bulbs already that I'll put in it. But I will literally pick 3 colored tulips and just layer it out and just have a beautiful tulip bouquet in there. I don't even fill it full of soil. I don't know if you've seen out there, we have those upsidaisies. So instead of me spending 20 bucks on potting soil to fill that damn thing with new soil, I'll take an upsidaisy home, slip the disc in, that gets me down to like halfway, then I can just fill the rest of it, put my tulips in, and off we go. You know, kind of thing. Yeah. Got any more? Yeah.
Why won't tulips naturalize? Just leave them in the ground.
Well, species always will. I mean, it'll probably be better than anything. Species tulips will naturalize very well. So if you get a species tulip or jonquils, the little short ones, you'll never be disappointed. You know, although that's daffodil. Do the species tulips. If they're hybrids, I'm not saying they won't come back. I'm not saying that. For me, I just, you know, I want the flower unless I really spend some time, extra food, keeping the squirrels out of them, all the rest of them. The next year, it's just always like, yeah, I had 15 of them and I got 5 flowers coming up. And it's not the end of the world, but I just, the hybrid tulips, I've always just said, treat them as a cut flower, kind of bouquet, just for my own yard. I certainly have seen other people that keep them year to year to year, and sometimes maybe it's even letting them go dormant, digging them, throwing them in the sack in the garage, and then putting them back in the fall, just like you planted them, you know, just like we're planting right now. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming down.